Today, we're digging into the very start of Bram Stoker's Dracula. We'll be focusing on Jonathan Harker's first journal entries, from May 3rd to the 12th.
Yeah, those entries are just packed, aren't they? They give us this amazing real-time feel for his trip into Transylvania and his arrival at Castle Dracula.
Exactly. And we're also bringing in a snippet from Mina Harker's journal much later, September 25th. She's hoping Van Helsing can shed some light on what Jonathan went through.
Which sets up that wider context nicely.
Right. So our mission today is basically to unpack Harker's first impressions, track that growing feeling of unease, and, look at all the weird stuff he starts noticing. Let's get into it.
Okay, so right off the bat, Stoker creates this sense for Harker of being a bit lost, things being off-kilter, the train schedules, for instance.
Yes. The delays.
He leaves Munich late, and it just seems to get worse the further east he goes. It's not just like inconvenient travel.
No.
It subtly suggests he's leaving a world of, reliable timetables and entering somewhere different, more unpredictable.
That's a really good point. And it's not just time that's fuzzy, it's space too, right? He mentions the maps.
The lack of detail.
Compared to the Ordnance Survey maps back home, which were super detailed, it immediately paints Transylvania as this less charted, maybe less understood place from his perspective.
Yeah, definitely outside the known Western world.
Yeah.
It really amps up that feeling of heading into the unknown. He does try to ground himself, though, observing things.
Like the different peoples. Saxons, Wallachs, Magyars. He lists them out, almost like an anthropologist.
Exactly. Very methodical. And then that great little moment.
The recipe. Mim, get recipe for this also.
It's so wonderfully ordinary, isn't it? A little bit of Harker, the normal guy, popping through all the strangeness.
It anchors him, yeah. But that feeling doesn't last long, especially once he gets to Bistritz.
Right. Bistritz is where you feel the mood shift. He says he feels uneasy, even though he has a crucifix. He blames it on local superstitions.
Which is interesting in itself. He's this rational Victorian man bumping up against these ancient fears. You see that tension right away.
You really do.
Yeah.
He's trying to be logical. But the atmosphere, it's getting to him.
And then the coach journey. This is where it gets properly gothic, I think.
Oh, absolutely. The reactions of the other people on the coach.
Making the sign of the cross, pointing the two fingers at him. It seems so dramatic.
It does. And the explanation he gets that it's a charm against the evil eye. Specifically for someone going to an unknown place to meet an unknown man.
Wow, yeah. That's pretty direct.
Incredibly direct. It links the local fear straight to Harker's destination. Castle Dracula, the Count. They're clearly seen as bad news by the locals.
So the warnings are there, even if he doesn't fully grasp them yet. And the landscape description adds to it too, doesn't it?
Definitely. The winding roads he calls serpentine.
Ooh, nice word choice there.
Yeah. And the snowy peak isn't God's seat.
Yeah.
Then the mentions of goiter, the people in their traditional clothes, but also...
The cross is everywhere.
Yeah.
And the people praying.
Paints this picture of a land that's deeply religious, but maybe also deeply afraid of something.
Steeped in something ancient. The landscape feels almost like a character.
It really does. Stoker uses it brilliantly. Those odd hayricks in the trees, the weeping birch, it all adds to this feeling of slight wrongness. Things aren't quite as they should be.
And then the coach arrives.
Ah, yes. The black horses, the tall driver you can't quite see.
And those red eyes, gleaming, pure gothic, instant chills.
Textbook Gothic imagery, it just screams foreboding.
And the driver's first words, "You're early tonight, my friend." It's so loaded.
It sounds so planned, like Harker's arrival is expected part of some schedule.
Yeah, not just a casual meeting. Then the quick switch to the other carriage, the caleche, and he mentions the driver's grip.
The strength, yeah. He notes that steel grip.
And that detail comes back later, doesn't it, with the Count himself? Another little breadcrumb.
A very significant one. It connects the two figures through this unusual physical power.
Then the journey through the Borgo Pass. Dark, scary.
Dogs howling, then wolves getting closer, and the driver totally calm.
Which just makes it worse for Harker. He's terrified, alone out there, and his driver doesn't seem bothered at all.
It completely isolates Harker, emphasizes how vulnerable he is, and then that blue flame appears.
Right, the flickering blue light, what is that about?
It's pure supernatural, unexplained, guiding them through the darkness. It pushes things beyond just creepy atmosphere into something else.
Okay, so he finally arrives, Castle Dracula looms up, and the Count greets him.
That famous line, "Welcome to my house. Come freely, Go safely and leave something of the happiness you bring. Very formal?
Almost theatrical.
Yes. And then the handshake. Strong, cold, maybe?
And Harker immediately thinks of the driver's grip again. That must have sent a shiver down his spine.
You'd think so. It's a huge red flag, connecting the Count to that unsettling journey.
Yeah.
But Dracula is all courtly manners initially.
Invites him in. Seems polite, but like you said, theatrical. He's interested in England right away.
Yes, buying property near London, Purfleet. And he wants something old, big, with a chapel. That tells you something about his character, his connection to the past.
And then life in the castle starts. Those long, late-night talks.
Yeah, the Count keeps him up, talking about history, the battles over the land, Wallachians, Saxons, Turks.
It feels a bit like Dracula's controlling the narrative, maybe. Spinning his own version of history.
Could be. And it's definitely wearing Harker down. Staying up all night, listening to these intense stories.
And Harker's unease just keeps growing. He starts to really suspect the Count was the driver.
And that he somehow controlled the wolves. That's a terrifying thought.
He starts thinking about the protections he was given too, the crucifix, the garlic.
Wild rose, mountain ash, all those things from the woman in Bistritz. He's caught between his modern skepticism and the sheer weirdness he's experiencing.
He even compares his diary to the Arabian Nights, interrupted by the cock crowing. It's like he knows he's in some kind of dark fairy tale.
That's a great comparison. It shows he recognizes supernatural rules starting to intrude on his reality.
Then comes May 12th, and he decides to change how he writes in his journal.
Yes, a really important shift. He decides to only record bare, meager facts. Things he can verify.
Trying to get objective, maybe regain some control, separate feelings from facts.
I think so. It shows how much he distrusts a situation and maybe even worries about who might read his journal.
And right on cue, the Count basically warns him. Says he should be careful what he writes because, well, he might read it.
Creepy. Confirms Harker's fears completely. So Harker gets clever.
Shorthand. Write secret letters to Mr. Hawkins and Mina in shorthand while keeping up appearances with formal notes.
Very resourceful. He knows he's in danger. He sees the Count writing letters too, looking things up in books. Adds to the mystery of what Dracula's planning.
And the Count offers to post Harker's letters for him. Takes them, stamps them.
Which sounds helpful, but really, it's control. He's monitoring Harker's contact with the outside world.
Definitely. Then there's that warning from the Count about going to bed. Unless you be sleepless yourself.
You'd better go to bed. It sounds polite, but the subtext is chilling. Like, don't pry into things you shouldn't.
A veiled threat, for sure. And then Harker discovers he actually can't leave.
The hall door is locked. Key gone. He's officially a prisoner.
He explores a bit, finds mostly dusty old rooms, reinforces that feeling of decay and isolation.
But then he finds a different area. A locked room near the west window.
Right. And the furniture there seems nicer, more comfortable. He guesses women lived there once.
And the view. He describes the valley, the mountains, but he mentions mountain ash and thorn trees.
Plants known for protection against evil and folklore. Right. Another little hint.
Exactly. It's a beautiful view, but the danger is still subtly present. And the moonlight, he mentions the yellow moonlight, no curtains, sets a very eerie stage.
And then they arrive.
The three women. Pale, piercing eyes.
And that breath. Honey sweet, but with an undertone.
Of blood. He smells it. It's both seductive and utterly terrifying.
And one kneels over him. He describes her deliberate voluptuousness, licking her lips. It's intense.
It really is.
Yeah.
It shatters any lingering normality. Predatory, sensual, and deeply wrong. That scent of blood confirms what they are.
But before anything happens, the older one stops them.
Dracula's voice, essentially, through her. How dare you touch him? How dare you taste what is mine?
Whoa. Possessive.
Oh.
Establishes Dracula's ownership of Harker. He's property.
Completely. Their disappointment, their anger. Then they just fade into the moonlight, out the window. Pure supernatural horror.
No wonder Harker loses consciousness. It's overwhelming.
Absolutely terrifying. And that's where his entries break off for a while.
Which brings us to Mina's entry way later in September.
Yeah, it's a brief one, but important. She's waiting for Dr. Van Helsing.
And she's hoping he can explain Jonathan's terrible experience.
It connects the dots for us. We know Jonathan went through something awful, Mina knows it, and now there's hope for answers with Van Helsing.
Creates anticipation. We want to know what Van Helsing knows, how he can help. It shows Mina's worry and determination, too.
Exactly. It bridges Harker's personal horror story with the larger fight that's coming.
So, looking back at just these first few weeks of Harker's journal, it's an incredible descent.
It really is. From a slightly unusual business trip to full-blown Gothic imprisonment and supernatural terror.
That contrast between the Count's initial politeness and the reality underneath, it's masterful.
Deceptive evil, perfectly portrayed. What starts as business quickly becomes a nightmare beyond Harker's understanding.
So, thinking about all this, for you listening, what were the clues? What little details jumped out at you in these early entries that hinted at what Dracula and his castle truly were?
Yeah, it's fascinating to reread it knowing what's coming, isn't it? You see how carefully Stoker laid the groundwork.
Definitely. And of course, to get the full picture, you really have to keep reading Dracula. Thanks.